Good evening, everyone. My name is Wenting Chen. I'm the president of the Boston chapter of the American Statistics Association, and I'm the associate director of biostatistics and Biogen. Thank you all for attending this award reception event tonight. This event is organized by the Boston chapter of the American Statistics Association in collaboration with the Kylie College here at the Northeastern University. Before introducing the award and tonight's awardee, I would like to say a few words about the Boston chapter. Boston chapter is one of the largest and most active chapters within the American Statistics Association, covering the states of Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont. We serve the statistics and data science community within these 5 states and beyond. And here is a list of our upcoming events. You can see that we have a wide variety of the events throughout the year. We host symposiums, event lectures, award reception events like this, and workshops and traveling course and social events as well. For example, on February 10th, we have the Introduction to Data Science workshop for high school students. And then on February 23rd, we have a webinar on statistical thinking in the age of AI for drug development, featuring Dr. Zhihen Xu, a lead FDA statistician. Then on April 20th, we will organize a student research symposium on statistics and data science in collaboration with the Boston University. So I know many students here at the Northeastern University are studying statistics and data science, so this will be the symposium that you want to join. Then in Q4, we plan to host the very successful and yearly Boston Pharmaceutical Symposium, with the topics focusing on the statistical research and its application in the pharma industry. If you are interested in biostat work in the pharma area, this is the event that you don't want to miss. Then we will have the yearly Master Statistician of the Year Award reception, AAC traveling course, and we will also have a coffee chat to connect the students with professionals. And this is one of the part of our initiative to better help the students. You can find this schedule at our event website, and we also welcome proposals for new events. And we also welcome new members. You can join the Boston chapter. Our chapter has more than 700 chapter members. We have this community which is welcoming, diverse, and inclusive. You can join the chapter when you join the ASA or renew your ASA membership, or you can join the chapter directly without joining the ASA, following the instructions on our chapter website. Now back to the topic about the Outstanding Teaching Award. This award was first established in year 2016, and the Boston chapter presents this Outstanding Teaching Award to acknowledge a distinguished faculty member who has made exceptional accomplishments in statistics and data science education. So far, there are 6 faculty colleagues that have received this Outstanding Teaching Award, including our Kylie Bemis, the assistant teaching professor at Kylie College at the Northeastern University. As many of you know, Dr. Bemis joined the Kylie College at Northeastern University as a faculty member in year 2016. Since then, she has been instrumental in shaping the Master's in Data Science program. Dr. David Kylie, the distinguished professor and director MS in Data Science program, lists some of Dr. Bemis' most outstanding contributions in one recommendation letter, including developing and teaching half of the required courses for the program, including the course which is fundamental about the programming, data management, and processing, and developing a capstone course that offers students the opportunity to build their data science skills and develop a portfolio. Developing the widely used R packages, Cardinal and Matter, which have more than 22,000 unique IP downloads. And maybe most importantly, Dr. Bemis' role as a mentor and role model to all the students in the data science program. Now, before presenting the award, we also invited Dr. Elizabeth Minot, the Dean of the Curry College at the Northeastern University, to say a few words. Dr. Minot, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, and welcome to Emporia College here at Northeastern University. We are so proud of Kylie, and it's just such an honor and opportunity to recognize her amongst her peers with this terrific award. I am just starting my third year here as Dean of Emporia College, so Kylie has more years on me. But just a little bit about her history here and the contributions that she makes as a faculty member. So she actually started in Olga Vitek's lab as a postdoctoral fellow, and that was in the statistical methods for studies of biomolecular systems here. And so very quickly thereafter, we grew to appreciate her skills and her contributions, especially to students in the classroom. So in 2019, then she joined as a faculty member. You've heard of her contributions to the MS and Data Science program. I think, part of that is, Kylie, who was the architect of 3 of the program's required classes, and it leverages her deep knowledge and expertise in statistics, machine learning, and algorithms. Kylie has taught over 1,000 students. You probably feel that way by now. And her mentorship and care and concern for the student body is I keep saying the word appreciated, just so deeply valued amongst our community and by her fellow faculty members and the students. I count someone who has been mentored by Kylie as a Native American transgender woman on our faculty. She has taught me about intersectionality and the experience of our faculty and our campus, and the importance of acknowledging the Native American experience within Northeastern, and I know we have miles to go with what we're trying to accomplish. I showed up here this time 3 years ago, and Kylie was one of the first folks that I got to interact with, and was just so informed and inspired by her work and her quiet leadership within Corey College. So I could gush more, but we want to hear your talk. So I just want to say congratulations again for this award. And I think we get to officially present it to you. And then after we keep embarrassing you, then we're going to let you give your talk. So we have the mic. Perfect.
Present the back to Dr. Bemis.
Thank you.
So, congratulations.
Yeah.
All right. Are you wired up or are you using that?
I'm using this.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, I guess it's me now. Thank you so much for those kind words and that very generous introduction. All right, so let me pull this up. Okay, hello everyone. So as you are now well aware, my name is Kylie Bemis. Hello everyone. So I wasn't entirely sure what to talk about for this kind of award or this kind of thing, but I think I just kind of thought about what are the things that I would like people to know and be aware of about where I come from and how I kind of approach things the way that I do. And so this is called Outliers, Life in the Tails, and the Statistics We Don't Plot. And before we get started, I just want to note a content note in case anyone needs to prepare themselves. I will make mentions of death, alcoholism, depression, and suicide in this talk. Starting right away, so this talk is dedicated to 3 of the people in my life that passed away over the just over the past year or so. So the first one is, that should actually be Jada Gonzalez, who is one of my cousins, specifically my niece's cousin, my sister-in-law's niece, and she was unfortunately killed at the end of 2022 due to gun violence in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so that December, that Christmas, I was at her wake, and so we miss Jada very, very much. It was her senior year before going to college. And then someone who I'll talk quite a lot about in the beginning of this talk is my father, Kerry Bemis. I owe him quite a lot for me being here, and unfortunately he passed away this past year in September after a long battle with Parkinson's disease. I'm very thankful that I was able to spend the last several weeks of his life with him and be there for him. So we'll see a little bit more of Kerry in this talk. And then finally, my uncle Gary Yatsiti, he unfortunately passed away due to complications from a car accident last December. So that was the second Christmas in a row I spent at a funeral, unfortunately. So I would like to at least honor them by introducing them to you before we continue, which kind of brings us to how did I get here in the first place? And for that, I owe quite a lot to this man, Kerry Jean Bemis, my father. He was a statistician before me, so I come from not quite a long line of statisticians, but a very small statistics dynasty. I searched for some of his papers before as I was making this talk, and this was the one that came up that I thought was the most relevant, that wasn't just about clinical trials and the other kinds of things that you end up as a co-author for. This seems like one that he might have actually been more interested in. So he was a statistician at Eli Lilly. And he worked in the developing pharmaceuticals, developing drugs, and kind of coming up with ways to identify new potential molecules for drug development. And so to kind of tell you a little bit about myself, I think it is helpful to go back to the beginning so that you know kind of what my perspective is and what I'm bringing in when I walk into the classroom. And so again, to do that, we really have to go back in time. So this is my mother and my father Kerry, my mom Cordelia Yatsiti. And so as a child, I was really kind of growing up in two different worlds. So I was born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. My father being a statistician for Eli Lilly, we were fairly comfortable, and so I'm very thankful for that privilege. And I went to a very nice private preparatory high school in Indianapolis, Park Tudor School. This is where all of the mayors and politicians' kids in Indiana went. I went to birthday parties that had ballets. It was truly a strange and interesting experience. It did prepare me well, and that was one of the worlds I grew up in. On the other end of that was Zuni Pueblo. So my mom is Native American, specifically we're from Zuni Pueblo, New Mexico. And so this is the sign that you see when you're first entering Zuni land, Zuni Pueblo. And so it's a small community. We're kind of lucky in that we are much more densely populated than a lot of the other Native American tribes. And so we have one main village that has, I want to say, about 6,000 people there. So quite a bit smaller than the university I would eventually end up going to. And so my childhood was really defined by this contrast between a private high school full of rich kids and going back every summer and break that I could back to New Mexico to spend time playing in the mud and the dirt with my cousins in Zuni. And kind of just being in that environment as I was growing up. And so I did eventually go to Purdue University. That came from a lot of drives with my father as he was driving me to Park Tutor. We were talking about what I would like to do. I have a lot of passions, creative writing being one of them, but ultimately he kind of convinced me that it would be useful to have something a little bit more lucrative than that in terms of making a career for myself. And so, although I had various interests in science, I was interested in physics as well and mathematics, but I really ended up liking statistics. It appealed to me because I could kind of apply it to any of the sciences or any kind of field that I wanted to. And so that was kind of the thing that really drew me into statistics specifically in the first place. And so I went to Purdue University. I chose it partially because it was close to my family. As far as the monetary side of things go, they offered me good scholarships, and they had a very good statistics program, including a fifth-year master's program that was appealing to me. So I started at Purdue there, and college was quite difficult for me, unfortunately. Being a student is hard, especially when you're juggling a lot of different identities that you haven't fully come to terms with or fully understood about yourself. Part of that being my Native American heritage, being half, we call it blood quantum. I would consider myself just Zuni, but blood quantum wise, you can see I'm technically 1.5 blood. And so that was part of it, being kind of feeling disconnected in that way culturally. Also, this was when I eventually finally sought out a diagnosis for autism spectrum disorder, which is something that a lot of my friends in high school suspected, and apparently my mother did as well, but failed to tell me about. So that cleared up quite a lot of things at college once I figured that out and got that diagnosis, but it also, that didn't necessarily make things better right away. So I still struggled quite a lot with socializing. I struggled with kind of following classes in the same way as a lot of my peers. I struggled with a lot of things that initially came easy to me in high school, but were much more difficult once I got to college. And of course, something that you hear a lot in pop culture is don't become a statistic. And they usually mean that in terms of car crashes and things like that. But it's hard to not become a statistic when you're already really defined by them, both in terms of your blood quantum. We, in my family, sometimes back on the reservation, we joke about, well, we're the 1% rather than the rich people. It's about 1% of the US is Native American. About 1% of the US is transgender, which is not something I knew about myself at the time, but it was certainly part of what was making things difficult for me. And about 2% of the US is autistic. So some of us are born statistics and some of us end up collecting them all. And I was quite overwhelmed ultimately at university. I was not a good student. I certainly had professors that liked me, but I also probably had a lot of professors that wondered where I was. I drank a lot. I didn't go to a lot of my classes. I got quite depressed as, again, juggling a lot of these things and not fully knowing how to reconcile these parts of my identity. Experiencing a lot of what I would eventually figure out was gender dysphoria. So I drank some more. I didn't go to some exams, in particular stochastic processes exam. I woke up and I rolled over and I went back to bed. Got arrested twice, just to understand the level of kind of where things were at the time. I didn't really go outside much, and I kind of hated myself, to be honest. But fortunately, out of all of that, I did eventually find some community. So after I somehow finished my master's in that fifth-year master's program, I'm honestly not entirely sure how I did that. Apparently, I actually did it pretty well. But after that, I was working in the statistical consulting service, which is a really nice thing that Purdue Stats has. And I ended up working with a woman named Melinda, who turned out to be an Apache woman, a student. And I had been aware that there was a Native American education and cultural center on campus. My brother actually helped to start it when he was at Purdue, but I hadn't really been to it my entire undergrad. And so finally, as I was starting my PhD in graduate school, I decided to go check out this Native American Educational and Cultural Center. And that really kind of saved me a lot. So I was offered a Sloan Indigenous Graduate Partnership Scholarship, which is something that the Sloan Foundation has in a few different universities, including Purdue, some of the Montana schools, University of Arizona, and University of Alaska. It's a scholarship for Indigenous graduate students. And at first I actually said that I don't really need this. I prefer it went to someone who actually needed this money. And the Lenape geology professor, Ken Ridgway, who was talking to me about it, he took me to lunch and he told me that, well, if you don't take this money, there is no one else who's going to take it in your place. And so you should go ahead and take it and do the best that you can with it. And so I ended up taking the scholarship and kind of trying to do the best that I could with it. And so I really put a lot of credit to that Native Cultural Center for getting me through grad school, where I found a lot of community and the other Native students there and the faculty that were there. And they kind of became my family away from home. And I do want to note that this is unfortunately something that I couldn't have done here. So why doesn't Northeastern have a Native American Cultural Center? So that's something to think about and perhaps influence if you have the power to do so. So I was doing a little bit better, but getting a PhD is still quite hard, even if everything is going well for you. So I did some research. I started working with my PhD advisor, Olga Vitek, and eventually I did a lot of, I think, interesting work, and then I kind of burnt out. Things were still hard. I did not quite know what gender dysphoria was at that point, but I was still very depressed and could not quite figure out exactly why. So I continued to get drunk, be depressed, and eventually, thankfully, through some kind of miracle, Olga did not get rid of me. Instead, she sent me to California for half a year to do some more research and experience some sunlight and things like that. And so fortunately out of that, I was still struggling. Things were getting better, but getting a PhD is still hard. Unfortunately, gender is even harder. So this is, the labels here are actually correct. That is not me, and that is not gender, that is a moose. This is my friend, Haley Bryant, driving the car. She's a Navajo. She was an undergrad at the time at Purdue. This was from one of our trips when we went to kind of mentor and chaperone Native high school students, this one in rural Alaska. But I think it kind of serves to show you what kind of suddenly realizing that you are not experiencing life as the gender that you are meant to be can kind of feel like. And so ultimately, in the kind of last year of my PhD program, I finally figured out that I really needed to transition if I wanted to finish that PhD and I wanted to continue to go into the world. And so again, that brings me back to this thing that you always hear about not becoming a statistic. And so a few statistics I want to share here. The lifetime suicide rate in the US general population is about 4.5%. Among transgender Americans, it is 40%. For transgender Native Americans, it's 57%. And among disabled transgender Americans, it is 66%. And so again, I'm very thankful that I decided to stay alive and that I am here today. And just a few more statistics that I won't read this time. But one thing that this kind of makes me think about is why is conditional probability always so depressing? Because when you're taking probability, there's always so many questions about, oh, if so and so has a disease, or if this percent of the population has some disease, and there's somehow something about conditional probability always leads to death. But fortunately, at least this time, it didn't, and I am still alive. But on that note, I did bring with me a take-home exercise for you on the topic of conditional probability. So given a millennial woman who is queer, transgender, Native American, and autistic, what is the probability that she receives a PhD in statistics? And then after solving that, what is the probability that she is still alive tomorrow? So I'm a millennial. I'm also curious how this probability changes if she is Gen Z. If it's higher or lower, that's a real question. I don't know. I transitioned at a time when things were getting better. For a time there, I was much more concerned about things in Indian country and Native American rights and things like that. And then things have gotten significantly worse lately for transgender Americans in the past few years. So that's a take-home exercise for you. But again, on the same topic in terms of who actually gets statistics PhDs. So while I was working on my PhD, I went to, there was a diversity summit or a diversity meeting at the Joint Statistical Meetings one year. And I decided to go because I thought it would be nice to meet other diverse statisticians, as it were. And I was the only Native American there. And I remember distinctly seeing a slide. It wasn't this exact plot, but it was some sort of graphic showing the distribution of race and ethnicity among people who got degrees in statistics. And so I took this from the ASA website. The statistics only go back to 2011, but I think it's still useful for illustrating the points. So here we have on the left all of the statistics PhDs from 2011 through 2016. On the right, I've shown them year by year. And of course, you can see that most of them are white. That's not surprising. But the question I have for you is, do you notice anything missing from this plot? So that is a little bit more realistic. And so just one thing that I like to keep in mind is what are the actual categories we're including on our bar plots when we're showing things about diversity and underrepresented minorities and things like that. So this was the reality in 2016. This was the reality in 2017. So that is me. And there has been one more in 2022. But at least as far as I was aware at the time, and there may have been others, again, the data only goes back to 2011. But the further you go back, I'm not sure about that. But so as far as I know, I was the first Native American to receive a PhD in statistics in technically the very end of 2016. I got counted in the 2017 statistics. So a big thank you to my advisor Olga and my parents and the Native American Cultural Center for helping me along that way. So I am that statistic now. And again, there has been one more in 2022. So this kind of brings me to teaching, which is the supposed topic of tonight and the reason for this award. And so all of this I tell you because it kind of informs everything that I carry with me when I walk into a classroom. So in terms of just thinking about who are our students, who are the people who are also walking into that classroom to learn, how do we see our students, and how do our students see us? And then moreover, as we're teaching them, what kind of data are we actually showing them, and what are the values that we are trying to teach them? So I was looking for some kind of ways to frame my thoughts around all of this over the past few nights, and I found this paper that, to my surprise and great joy, was that's another typo. That should say Ronalda Sosi in the source there on the bottom left. Ronalda, she is a Navajo scientist that I met as part of the Sloan Indigenous Graduate Partnership Program when I was visiting, let's see, it was the Montana State University, I believe in Bozeman, or either that, one of the Montana schools. So she was is the first author on this paper describing the 6 R's of Indigenous research. And I thought I would just go ahead and try to apply some of these to teaching. And when I found this, I was quite happy that it was 6 of them. There's an earlier paper that describes the 4 R's of Indigenous research, and 4 is a very sacred number to a lot of tribes for the 4 directions. But in my tribe in Zuni, we actually have 6 directions because we count up and down, zenith and nadir. It's also the number of the types of corn. So there are 6 colors of corn: yellow, white, blue, black, red, and multicolor. And every winter we sing to the corn to make sure that they are stay alive and are able to give us good crops in the next year. So I'm just going to walk through these. So we have respect, relevance, relationship, reciprocity, representation, and responsibility. So the first one here is respect. And so when I think about respect, I'm thinking about how do we respect our students? And one of the things that I think is one of my own strengths as a teacher, and one of the things that I valued most in the people who've taught me, is just patience and kindness. I think all students, all of us, are capable of learning, even if we struggle against it or don't show up to class sometimes. And so I think it's important to keep all of those things in mind. And even if we have students that are struggling, to show them love and kindness and be patient with them. And then what do we teach our students about respect? And this is one that's very important to me, which is respect for data sovereignty. We're living in an era where more and more data is online, is on everywhere, and everyone has access to everything. And so everything in our phones, everything that we do on the internet is all recorded, and it all goes into these big, large language models that are going to eventually take over the world and steal everyone's jobs. That is not the part that I'm actually worried about. I don't care about Skynet or anything like that. I'm more worried about whose data is that, and where is it coming from, and do we have respect for the people whose data that we're using? Do we have permission to use that data for the purposes that we're using it for? And so a lot of native tribes have been exploited for their data over the years, and kind of taking control of our data again is one of the things that has been really important to a lot of tribes. And indigenous data sovereignty is something that I wish we talked about more, but just in general, teaching respect for the people whose data that we're using. The next R, we have relevance. So how do we make our material relevant? And that one's a little bit easy in terms of thinking about teaching. So we want to show data and show material that is relevant and meaningful to our students in some way. And that sometimes means not relying on the same kind of examples that we always have with infinite coin flips and things like that, but trying to find data sets that are going to have some kind of relevance to the students in the classroom. So this is just an example data set I had in one of my early homeworks from when I first started teaching here, is just plotting the computer science papers by author gender over the years, and kind of seeing both some unfortunate things, but also a little bit of hope at the end as that proportion is changing over time. Another thing that's important to me is allowing students to kind of pursue their own interests, especially in my classes. I'm teaching a lot of master's students who are going to go into industry and work on things that they have that do not affect them at all and they might not really care about. And so I want to at least give them a chance to work on something that is interesting to them while they're in my class. And so that means allowing them to choose their own topics, choose their own data sets, even if sometimes that makes a bit more work for me in terms of figuring out how to grade that and figuring out how to give guidance and advice about it. And then in terms of relevance, what do we teach our students? And for me, a lot of this comes down to communication. That is one of the kind of weaknesses I've seen in a lot of students, and one of the things that I try to emphasize and try to pass on is how to communicate and make your results relevant to other people. Figuring out what are the results that are actually going to be relevant and meaningful to other people, and how can we actually communicate those results in a meaningful way. Because if we can't communicate those results, they're not really going to be meaningful at all. And so that's one of the other things that I try to do is try to teach students how to communicate better, how to tell the story about the data and the results that they have. And then we have relationship. So if we think about the relationships we have in the classroom, there's of course that student-teacher relationship. But I'm more interested in the relationships that we have as a community and with the world. So as a data scientist or as a statistician, what is your relationship with the community, with the world? Is the work that you're doing going to make the world a better place? What is your relationship to the data itself? And so in terms of relationships, I think that's, again, one of the things that we're often forgetting. And this goes back to that idea of respect for the people whose data that we're using. But what is your relationship to the data itself and to the people that that data was collected from? So this is just an example data set that probably many of you have seen. It's a diabetes data set collected from the Pima people, Akamil Otham people. Way back, like several decades ago. So this was from a study that they were originally looking for, I forget exactly what it was, but they went to this tribe in the Southwest. They were not initially looking at diabetes, that's something completely different. And they found that this tribe had one of the highest rates of diabetes in the world, and asked them all to participate in this study, this data collection, which the vast majority of the tribe agreed to. And that data collection was supposed to last about 10 years, and then it ended up lasting for about 40 years. And that data is now used as example data sets for machine learning all over the world. Completely devoid of the context in which it was collected, why it was collected in the first place. So this is a data set that shows up a lot when we're just testing out machine learning algorithms, showing how to do linear regression, teaching statistical inference. I even use it myself. But I think it's important to remember where it came from and think about what is the relationship that we have to this data set and to the people whose data we collected to do this. There's a lot of very sensitive information here. The number of pregnancies that the women in this tribe had, whether they have diabetes, all of these different medical information that today we might think twice about whether we're comfortable with this data being collected and used as examples decades and decades into the future. Okay, so now something a little bit happier, which is reciprocity. So how can we practice reciprocity? Well, I think obviously students can learn from each other, and I think that's very important. I think it's also important for us to learn from our students. And so one of the things that has brought me a lot of joy in my classes is seeing the projects that a lot of students come up with when they are kind of free to pursue their own interests and the things that are important to them. So I can't take credit for the choice in these projects, but I can certainly enjoy and appreciate the directions that some of my students have taken in either partnering with nonprofits to try to help refugees through to show their services while also protecting the privacy of those refugees, or even just helping people understand privacy policies and what their data is actually going to be used for in the first place, which is again pretty relevant to what I'm talking about now. So these are just a couple examples that I wanted to show from that capstone class that was mentioned earlier. So in terms of reciprocity, yes, we want to teach our students to think about whose data they are using, who benefits from those results, and how can they use their skills as statisticians, as data scientists, to give something back to make sure that people are going to benefit from the work that they're doing. Then we have representation. So how do students see themselves in both in the data and in leadership roles? And this is one of the things that's, I suppose, a little bit easy for me because I just try to show up and be there. But I do try to find data sets where students can see themselves represented. I'm not always successful because those data sets are sometimes hard to find. But it is something that's important to me and something I want to continue trying to do. So if anyone knows good data sets that show representation of people, that would be great. And then what do we teach our students? So I think this is again something very relevant in terms of statistical analysis, but thinking about who is actually represented in the data and whether that data represents our target population. So I think this is one of the things that is kind of sometimes difficult for students, especially those coming from a more computer science, machine learning, or data science background to think about. But what can we actually make conclusions about a wider population as a whole, and what is the population that we're actually talking about? Is this data actually representative, or are there people missing in this data that we are not talking about, but maybe we should be talking about? And then I saved responsibility for last because I think it's kind of the most important one up here for me. So again, I want to start by thinking about what responsibilities do we have as teachers. And for me, that is, again, I stole this from doctors and from medicine, but first do no harm. I think that there is a very dangerous potential to turn students off from a subject forever if they have a bad experience with a professor, with a teacher, with material in a way that doesn't speak to them, in a way that puts them down or makes them feel stupid. And I, first of all, want to do my best to make sure students don't come away with that. And even if they don't learn something from me, I want them to want to learn something from other people in the future. So first, do no harm, and after that, we can facilitate curiosity and learning. And then what do we teach our students? So this, I think, again, is one of the most important roles of statistics and statisticians in the scientific community, is that we are ultimately kind of gatekeepers of the scientific method, of scientific inference. And it's our responsibility to look at what methods are being used, how people are interpreting results, and kind of stand up and say, that doesn't actually follow from that, or that method is not actually appropriate. We can't actually draw those conclusions when we need to. And just because we're working with people who want to find some kind of result or want to report something that is interesting and high accuracy or whatever it is, we have an obligation not to do that if we're unable to do so ethically. And so all models are wrong, but some are ethical. And again, this goes back to a lot of what we have now with AI and large language models and deep learning and these chatbots and everything. Again, I'm less concerned about the students using them to do their homework or to eventually take, or for them eventually taking over the world. That is not what scares me. What scares me is that they're using other people's art without permission, that they're using other people's papers and poetry and novels without permission, and reproducing those things in ways that they have no permission to do. So again, think about whether the model that you're developing is ethical. Do you have permission to use this data in this way? And are the people whose data you're using, are they actually going to benefit from this, or are they not? So those are some of the things that I thought about as I was going through those 6 R's of Indigenous research, and kind of how they framed my thoughts in terms of thinking about teaching. And so it's kind of to wrap things up, I'm thinking about what is statistics in general, because that's what my background is and is what this talk is about. So I tend to think of statistics just as the study of variation. Things change. How are we the same, and how are we different? Those are some of the fundamental questions of humanity and trying to understand each other, and they're also the kinds of questions that we're trying to answer as statisticians. And then what is teaching itself? So I thought about this for a lot over the past few nights, and I kind of figured out that to me, teaching is really about learning with others. And so whenever you teach something, it's really just a way of rediscovering how you understand that, and then figuring out how we can understand this thing together. And so my favorite questions in any class, or even outside the classroom, are always the ones when I don't know the answer and I get to say, well, I don't know, let's find out, and we can kind of work through that together. So to wrap things up, thank you everyone, and a few people that I want to make sure I thank and acknowledge. So on the left side over here, I have some people from that Native American Educational and Cultural Center at Purdue. So Felica is the director of that Native Cultural Center. She is hired to kind of be the auntie to all of us Native students back at Purdue. And so she was incredibly important in kind of putting all of that together and keeping us together as a family at that center. And then Professor Ken Ridgway and Kevin Gibson were 2 of the directors of the Sloan Indigenous Graduate Partnership at Purdue University. So Ken Ridgway was the one who had that talk with me about the Sloan Scholarship and convinced me to take the money. And so they are also were incredibly helpful to me, and I don't think I would have been here without them. So Felica is Navajo Dene, Ken is Lenape. Kevin's a white guy, but a very lovely white guy. And then on the right, on the far right, I have a few people from the stats department at Purdue, although they're not all at Purdue anymore. So first 2, Professor Mary Ellen Bach and Professor Rebecca Dirge were department heads when I was there. So Mary Ellen was the department head kind of when I first arrived, and was just stepping down as I was leaving, but she, and along with Rebecca, who kind of succeeded her as department head, they did a lot of work in making that department a place where someone like me could actually succeed and get a PhD. And so I don't think that department would have been a place for me without their hard work. And of course, I want to thank my PhD advisor, Olga Vitek, for all of the help and all of the encouragement and everything throughout the years. So I definitely could not have done any of this without her either. And then lastly, I want to thank my parents. So my mom, Cordelia, for giving me all of the strength to kind of get through a lot of the challenges that life threw at me. And then my father, Kerry Bemis, for kind of teaching me about statistics and this field and what it can be. So that's it, everyone. Thank you so much for the support.
don't know what happens next.
Supposed to be question and
Okay.
Yes, questions? Hi.
How do you explain, your name, like, you had like, what looks like name?
Yeah, my name, so let me go back, my full name, Kylie Ariel Kawistulu Bemis. So the first two names, Kylie Ariel, are names that I chose. And then the second middle name, Kawistulu, is one that I kept from my previous name, so that was originally my great-grandfather's name, one of my great-grandfather's two names, so he had a government name, Walela, that he put on government documents, but I guess everyone called him Kawistulu. So he was a Zuni man. I decided to keep that middle name for, I think, obvious reasons, although my mom did eventually tell me that there could have been a feminine form of it, but I'm happy to keep it anyway. Good question, and other questions?
Where's the suicide in the?
Well, fortunately, it was just a reference to it rather than actually happening, but still, so. Yes.
How has it been to mentor students, who walk some of these same paths, and your encounters here?
So the question is, how has it been to mentor other students who have walked some of these same paths? And it is great when I have that opportunity. It doesn't come along as often as I'd like it to, but it is definitely one of the things that makes teaching really worth it when I have a student that's able to kind of come and talk to me a little bit about who they are and what they need, and I'm able to offer some advice or guidance, or just kind of be there as someone who has also been there. So yeah, it's not something that comes up as often as I'd like, or maybe it does and I don't even know it sometimes, but that's when I am able to talk to those students, that is, yes, one of the things that makes all of this worth it. Yes. Ooh, so the question is, how do you get a student who's kind of struggling to open up to you? And I'm afraid I don't really know the answer to that. That's one of those things that is really difficult. And for my part, I don't necessarily take a hands-on role in trying to get students to open up. I more just try to be available and be there when they need me, or when they are ready. I do try to tell students that if they have anything that they're struggling with, to reach out to me as early always in the semester as they can, so I can try to be more helpful. Because as things get later in the semester, there's always fewer things I can do. But even when that's not the case, I can't always do something academically, but I can point them in the direction of resources that they might need. So unfortunately, with the number of students that come through different classrooms, it's not always easy, depending on the class and the class size, to reach out to students one-on-one if they're struggling. But yeah, that's one of the challenges with larger classes and with programs that have more students. But so I guess I just try to be there when they are ready to talk about something, and try to make it known that they can talk to me, or that I am there. Oh yes, over here.
Tell us a little bit about some of the classes that you do teach here, especially the ones that you help develop.
Yeah, so the question is about the classes that I teach here. And so the three main classes that I teach that were mentioned earlier. So I guess the two that I first started teaching were Intro to Data Management and Processing, which is essentially the Intro to Data Science course that the incoming Masters in Data Science students take. And so this is an example from one of those homeworks, a homework that's not in use anymore, so I'm happy to show it. So that class is just about kind of introducing master's students to data science, introducing ways to visualize, process data, a light intro to modeling to prepare them for the machine learning courses. Another one is the capstone class. So this is the one that students take at the end of their master's program. And so it's a project-based course. So students find teams. They propose a topic of their choice. The way that I have it arranged, I kind of break the semester into two parts. The first half of the semester, the second half of the semester, and students have the choice of either doing one kind of big project broken into two phases or two smaller projects. And that's just to give some flexibility. Sometimes things work out and deserve a full semester. Sometimes you kind of get to a stopping point and the analysis is done and it's time to move on. So those are the two main ones that I started teaching, and then I also have been teaching the Intro to Programming for Data Science, which is another one that I really enjoy teaching because it's where I see a lot of the aligned students. So these are students who are coming from undergrad programs that were not in computer science. So I really enjoy teaching those students. So this is Intro to Programming for Data Science students specifically. So goes through all the standard intro programming stuff, but with kind of a mindset toward data science. Yes.
The concept of two-spirit in Native American culture has been perhaps overly popularized recently. I wanted you to comment on that and then also comment on Zuni approach to two-spirit.
Yeah, great question. So the question is about two-spirit in Native culture. So two-spirit is a pan-Native term, so it's a term that's kind of shared across all of the different tribes. It actually came out of a pan-Indian conference of a lot of gay natives essentially back in several decades ago. I can't remember exactly when, but they came out with this term two-spirit that we could all kind of share as a reference or a umbrella term for a lot of the different cross-gender identities that different tribes have. So two-spirit is a umbrella term for a lot of different tribes' ideas about gender and cross-gender identities. Not every tribe will necessarily have those, but many of them do. So in different tribes will have different ways of identifying gender. So for example, in Navajo and Diné, there's Nadle. In I think Lakota, it's Winte. I could be pronouncing those wrong, but anyway, in Zuni, it is Thamana. And so actually one of the most famous two-spirit people, or most well-known two-spirit people was Wewa, who is a Zuni Thamana. And so she actually ended up touring the country and met. This was in the turn of the century, so if anyone remembers who the president was in like 1900 or so, met the president back then. And so in Zuni, it was the role that Wewa and Zuni Famana have is really kind of, a mixing of both genders and responsibilities of both, but also a freedom to do things that other people couldn't necessarily do. So Wewa was one of the first people to enter kind of a business with white people. So she started a laundry service in Zuni, and among other things. So a lot of great stories about Wewa. She was eventually arrested along with all of our sun priests for we hung a witch named Nick. It was well deserved because he was collaborating with the U.S. Army, who were not our friends. So again, lots of stories there, but Two-Spirit as a term is something that I identify with, along with Sana to a lesser extent. It's hard. It's one of those things where I get a lot of meaning and connection to the fact that it was there, and also a lot of frustration and difficulty at the fact that a lot of that culture was stolen. So it's something that a lot of tribes, we are now kind of in the younger generation especially kind of rediscovering and rewriting a lot of those things and refinding some of those things that we're taking away through colonization. And yes, so Two-Spirit is a term that is a cultural gender, and so it's not something that people get to use if they are not Indigenous or really Native American specifically, because it is a Pan-American Native term. Which is also to say that other Indigenous tribes, other Indigenous societies will have their own concepts of gender too. Great question. Others?
Thank you, Dr. Bemis, so much for the very inspiring and sincere talk. And I think all of us learn a lot from it. The path that she took, the decisions she made, the experiences she has, and lead to how outstanding she is today as a teacher and as a professor. And I also appreciate that you shared how to teach students with respect, with caring, and the principles that you showed in the teaching, which exactly amplifies the spirits of our outstanding teaching award by the Boston chapter. On behalf of the chapter, we are very glad that Dr. Bemis is the recipient of the 2023 Boston chapter Outstanding Teaching Award. And we want to thank all of you for attending this reception and for listening to Dr. Bemis' presentation and for the wonderful questions that you brought to us today. And for those of you who are interested in joining our future events, especially if you want to listen to some presentations like the one with Dr. Bemis, please join our future events. And it's $12 for students membership, $10 for non-students. Nowadays, you can't buy even a cup of coffee with $4, so or a milk tea. So please consider joining us and join our future events. Thank you so much.